What's up, guys? We have Jon Katz in the studio with us today. What is up, John?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So we're both New Yorkers. We love that. I am not a like New Yorker. I get it all the time. Every time I say I'm from New York, people are like, "Oh, like the city." I'm like, "There's a whole state attached to the state. Like it's not just the city, but you're in the city.
I am, yeah. And New York is a state for those who are not aware. You are,
There's a whole ass state."
And Heather is from New York, so you gotta put some respect on her name. But yes, I'm from New York City, born and raised. I lived many years outside of New York, but I
Hmm.
returned in 2018,
Yeah,
and
you
here I
you
stand.
kind of
Right
have to.
here, yeah, no, the call of the wild, or I guess the call of the civilized, was too loud to ignore. But I returned back, and that's where I stand, and that's where I sit today.
So yeah, so what is your story? Because we've gone over it, but that's what this podcast is for. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I would say that all of our stories are essentially the same when you boil down to it. It's
Hmm.
just there's two main differentiators: the specifics of how it played out and what we've chosen to do with it. But I had a lot of what a lot of people have: uncomfortability growing up, a lot of chaos at home, maybe not the most stable environment, and like a lot of kids, people found solace in various escapes. I was never a serious hardcore addict to any substance, but I would say the thing that I was addicted most strongly to was negativity. I was a serious negativity addict.
Hmm.
Not almost, I found this comforting blanket in being an extremely dark, negative person. I also did all the drugs and the drinking and the sleeping around and all that stuff as well, and just muddled through life, playing everyone else's game, doing what everyone does, all of
Hmm.
the standard stuff that's expected of us. And it drove me to a dark place. And where I find that most people are not willing to talk about is how dark their life has gotten. But I openly speak
Yeah.
about it. So I was on the verge of suicide. I had taken all these negative choices throughout my young life and compounded with some negativity that befell me, when I was growing up. And then also in my relationships, it just put me at a really dark point. And that's when I was considering killing myself. And I didn't. And I pulled back from the brink thanks to finding a real kind of simple ascetic way of living. City living, especially, is a real hedonistic party. Everything in the city
Literally.
is at our fingertips. And I know it's possible in suburban and rural areas as well, but there's something extremely party focused about the big city. There's something extremely party focused about the city I was living in when I reached kind of my most degenerate, which was New Orleans. There's just all of these temptations and pressures, especially for a young dude in his 20s and 30s. And I fell victim to it. I was too weak to resist whatever society's dominant narrative was. And this is what drove me to the brink of death. I pulled myself back from the brink by implementing a simple ascetic mindset training program. And I changed my life, changed everything about my life. I lived dark for about 20 years, and I've been living light for 3. And there couldn't be any more greater difference. It's what's drawn us together. And as I walk this path, I realize that everyone has this story. It's just some people aren't willing to talk about it, but you are. And I'm very thankful that we're able to talk about this stuff together.
We got to talk about it because if I'm not willing to talk about it, then I'm doing other people that are, and I'm not saying that you're doing people a disservice if you're not talking about it, but because I felt like, especially with my story and like my mental health and stuff like that, I felt like I would do people a disservice if I wasn't helping because I was talking about it to my friends and family. So I was like, why not talk to anybody about it? It
Yeah,
might
it's
help
extremely
somebody.
selfish not to. That's the thing. It's extremely selfish not to. If you and I have figured out some answers to life's greatest questions around anxiety, depression, uh, various mental health disorders, suicidality, in my case, fitness and nutrition, these things that plague people. Most people deal with these or don't deal with these things. Most people have these things forever and then they die. So
Hmm.
if you and I have been able to figure out ways through it to not cause death or to not end up dying with these problems, and we don't share it, we're extremely selfish. And I refuse to walk the selfish path. I won't do it.
Well, and it's
So
breaking generational things too, because like I know I'm not the only one in my family that probably deals with stuff, and the way I choose to deal with it and the way that, it's how it's always been done are very different. And, I just wanted different for myself,
I
and
hear
I'm,
you. Does
I'm
your
sure you
family,
did too.
do you come from, oh, 100%. Do you come from a group of drinkers, users, stuff like that?
No, it was just a lot of they definitely, I mean, they're German Italian, old school. So I think that kind of fills in the blanks of just, we yell a lot. There's just, a lot of shiznit. So it was up to me to just be different. And it's hard sometimes. It's hard to not fall into the same kind of toxic mentality a lot of the times, but it's worth it because I'm definitely even at my worst, I'm in a better place than I was 10 years ago.
Good on you. Yeah, that chaos is awful. That
It
chaotic
is.
energy. Some people thrive on that. I've been around people who have said to me, and I quote verbatim, if somebody isn't bringing me chaotic energy, I'm going to create it myself. Is that folks are
Mm-hmm.
so drawn to chaos because that's what they were raised in, that they feel comfortable. It's like the way I felt comfortable in negativity. That's
Yeah, it was.
I can't imagine that mindset to have to always yearn for a state of
Yeah.
chaos. I hated that. I hated feeling like that inside.
Well, I was gonna ask, because you had said that you did New York City, then you did New Orleans, and I was gonna ask kind of a random question, were you just kind of subconsciously addicted to the chaotic energy of those cities? Because it's not like you went from New York City to Plattsburgh. You went to another loud, never sleeps, chaotic city. So it's kind of where was that just a subconscious like choice for you that you just there was familiarity in the chaos? Because I always say that there's
So
safety in chaos for me because I know chaos. I know how to handle it, stuff like that. And my life is still chaotic, but it's a different kind of chaotic. It's not toxic chaotic. It's just, I have a small zoo of three cats and a dog, and it's just the constantly the things that happen to me. I'm like, you would not believe if it was not me. It would sound like somebody else is totally making it up. But yeah, did you find in those moments that you were subconsciously just addicted to the chaos because it was safe, because you knew how to handle that, or you knew what came with it?
that's such a good question. I actually ended up in New Orleans because that was the best school that I got into for university, and they, provided a scholarship and all of that. But what kept me there and what kept me in my negative state was being drawn. I never would have admitted it, but was being drawn to negativity. I think it was just the ease of living in New Orleans. I mean, the old stupid, they call it the big easy, but that's not an exaggeration. One can put forth minimal effort and be okay. And also,
Mm-hmm.
one isn't really judged on making moves or being productive or being in shape or any of the things that I think a person can judge a person's character by, because it requires effort. In New Orleans, it doesn't
Right.
require much effort at all. So maybe there is some sort of some subconscious thing. But I did choose to move back to New York City when I was not in a good place, and if I was really thriving on the real chaos of New Orleans, because there's no chaos like New Orleanian chaos that I've been around. Maybe Vegas might
Right.
have that, but New Orleans is a city of alcoholics. It's everything has been normalized. Being hungover, being drunk, being lazy, not knowing, not caring. These things are very much normalized, and it allows for this sort of slow moving situation. New York does not play that at all.
No.
So what I was drawn to was chaos in relationships. That's what was modeled for me, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
I was drawn to. I constantly was in these chaotic, whether it be short term or long term. That's what I couldn't understand how it always ended up that way. That I was always drawn to these chaotic. And I'm not even going to say the other person was chaotic. The relationships are a two-sided thing. So I was
Right.
drawn to these chaotic things. But I love that insight, and it's almost quite there.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So your your whole thing currently is food rescue.
That is a major part of who I am and what I do. So
Yeah,
I
so
believe
tell me about that because I am very curious.
absolutely, and I love that when we first connected, you were like, "Well, this is something that I vibe with," because a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know, which is cool, but a lot of people do know and don't care. And for
Hmm.
those in the audience that are unaware, that's fine. These are not widely publicized statistics, but 1/3 of all the food that's grown in this country is thrown out. And to drive this point
Hmm.
home, 1 million New Yorkers went hungry last year. So that's very odd when so much food is being wasted. But
The
I've
math
always
ain't mathin'.
Right, exactly. I've always been into food rescue since I was young. In my early 20s, I used to haul bags of bread from the French Quarter restaurant I was working at to homeless encampments, just because I couldn't understand the logic of, well, this bread is freshly made. It's actually
Right.
untouched. It would be a whole sheet pan of bread. But let's say a tenth of the sheet pan was consumed. Well, 90% is fine, or maybe 90% was consumed while there's still a loaf remaining. Regardless, I would take it to a homeless encampment and give it away, and the people are overjoyed. But one of the things I've learned on the path that I'm walking is that the love we have for the universe and the group is very much scales to the love we have for ourselves. So that was the capacity I had to love myself. I love myself enough to do food rescue at this scale. And as I've grown and become more loving, I've been able to grow the project as well. And at its peak, at its most recent iteration, we were feeding about 7,000 families a week in New York City. And this is a food rescue network that I grew intentionally by working on it every day for about 500 days. It's so interesting the way all of these things manifest themselves and interact with each other, and inform each other. So when I had a weak mindset, I had enough mental fortitude to take bread from the end of the shift to the underpass. And as my mindset grew by the end of it, and I wasn't in control of this, but I was definitely organizing this massive undertaking. And for
Hmm.
all of you out there that feel a lack of love in your life or a lack of ability to give love, these things are essentially the same. We can only love others as much as we love ourselves, and we can only bring love to others as much as we can bring love to ourselves. And I believe that self-love is the first step. It was for me. I never really loved myself. I never really understood how to give or receive love. So I'd be in these relationships and I wasn't really there. I was doing things that most guys do because they don't really love themselves. The man who fully loves himself and is totally okay with himself will not seek to be strange and not present in his relationship. And I don't
Hmm.
just mean a romantic relationship, I mean a relationship of any type. And so my relationship
Right.
to food rescue, 1 to 1 paralleled my relationship to this journey that I'm on.
Right. Exactly. So I know that when we had talked, you had said that you have the food rescue and then you also have you like remotely coach
Yep.
other people to set up in their areas. How how does that, like, can you kind of walk me through the process of, well, just walk me through the process of what it is you do now with your food rescue program, and then also how you coach the remote ends of it.
Certainly. So the current food rescue program that I put together is a network of a few hundred volunteers that pick up edible but unsaleable food from some number of sites around the city, like 15 or
Hmm.
20 sites around New York City. It's a 7 day a week operation. And I coach people on two fronts. One is how to set up food rescue programs in their area, and the other is to get their mind and body and everything right for themselves. And those two things are very much connected. So all of my
Right.
online coaching clients, if they're interested in setting up a food rescue program, I can help them do that. And then for my more corporate clients, I can set up, because I've consulted with businesses and nonprofits that are looking to become more green, I can just focus on that with them. And the typical way, this is the best way for all of you listening and watching to set up a food rescue program, is to first identify the source of waste. Every restaurant wastes food. Every catering company wastes food. Every grocery store wastes food. Every office wastes food. I know that you've been to a catered lunch and you've seen 3 dozen sandwiches been thrown away at the end. So you
Hmm.
first identify the point of waste. You then identify people in the community that could use food. Folks that are unhoused, maybe shelters, women's, men's, homeless, whatever. Identify those 2 points. And then the key point is the central part, which is the delivery mechanism between point A and point B. And a lot of people think, well, isn't it illegal? A lot of states, it isn't illegal. And the most important thing for you to do is to ask. So you go to the grocery store. Hi, I'm looking to rescue food. Can you put me in touch with the person that handles donations at the end of the night? Well, we don't have donations. Okay. Well, I'd love to pick it up. Can I meet your closing manager this evening? That's one line of text.
Perfect.
For a restaurant, hey, what do you do with the soup at the end of the night? Well, we usually throw it out. Well, I have in the town bylaws that it's actually okay to donate food from restaurants. Would you be okay if I stopped by with my station wagon at the end of the shift and picked up the soup? So there are a million ways. And if you all need
Right.
script or text or coaching on this, please reach out. I provide all this stuff just because I think, I've said this before. I don't know if sin exists in the religious sense, but if sin
Right.
does exist, I would say that food rescue is sin. I think we can all agree. Our Mother Earth has given us life. For us to
Hmm.
throw away that food is highly sinful. So I really appreciate you asking about the food rescue. It is part and parcel of who I am and what I do, and it can be done anywhere. I mean, a tragedy of the modern era is the fact that food is being wasted everywhere. Our grandparents
Hmm.
would it wasn't done back then.
Right.
It just wasn't done. I don't know when your folks came to this country, but when my folks, like where my folks came from, my people came from, they didn't do that. They couldn't. Everyone was poor. Like food is treated as this disposable thing now. It's sickening.
Yeah, it really is. And we have to remember that the Great Depression, for just a historical context of when things were very scarce. The Great Depression happened what, in the 30s? Was that the 30s? Yeah. So that was, I mean, my grandmother was born in 1940. So that was like right at the, so she had siblings, older siblings. So she was one of the youngest. She had older siblings that lived through that. So her parents lived through that. And like, so, but we're not so far removed from that. Our great grandparents lived through, you know, all of that. So it's a little crazy when you put it, it's a lot to think about when you put it into perspective where we haven't had, but there's still people that, to this day, that obviously live with food insecurity and stuff like that. I never had to growing up, but I had friends that, did and stuff like that. So we're not really that far removed from any of that at all.
No, and I don't believe, like, if you really want to zoom out, and I do because everything I do starts here and
Absolutely.
then I just zoom all the way out. If you zoom all the way out, how on earth can we survive as a species if we waste our food? Like, it just isn't possible. And then there's like the spiritual aspect. What message are we sending to the creator? What message are we sending to the universe? What message are we sending
Hmm.
to hungry people? I live on. Are you familiar with this? Well, it doesn't really matter. But if you next time you're in the city, if you go to the Lower East Side, there's a main thoroughfare, and I hope to see you then and your husband. If you head to the Lower East Side, there's a main thoroughfare called Allen Street. It runs north south. Just a
Hmm.
main thoroughfare, and I live on Allen Street. And directly outside my window, every other Thursday, I want to say, there's a line of seniors in all weather to pick up food donations. These are folks mostly who speak English as a second language, almost entirely, generally 55 to 85, sometimes in their 90s. And these
Hmm.
people would starve if they did not have food being distributed. And this is insane. What
This
are
should
we
not
telling
be a
our
thing
creator
in
that we are
2024.
disrespecting our elders? We're making our elders stand in the freezing rain and sun, blazing sun, to get food
Hmm.
while we throw out our food. It's just unacceptable. So I want to
Yeah.
stand for it. And as soon as I got healthy, the craziest thing about this, as soon as I got healthy and got out of my own way and started training my mind and body, the world opened up and I was able to develop this massive food rescue program. So, all of you who are struggling with your projects, it's because you are not working on yourself enough. How can your projects work out if you don't work out? And I mean, literally, how can your projects occur if you don't work out? It just isn't going to happen.
Hmm. Yeah, because to kind of circle back to the getting healthy part, and obviously I like stalked your Instagram before he came on. But
Good.
so you also have like quite the health journey of losing weight. And so, I mean, tell us about that.
Oh man, I was shot out. It was horrible. Dude, by the end, when I was thinking about killing myself, you know what pushed me over the edge?
Hmm.
I was having trouble tying my shoelaces straight up. That's when I knew I had to change. It was difficult for me to tie my sneakers. And I want everyone out there to understand you are not a bad person for being overweight. This is not some sort of,
Thank you.
you are not like an evil, like this is insane. Half of all American adults, and I don't mean to use that word insane, and I hope I didn't use it earlier, but I do find myself, and I want to cut back on that. This is not okay. The fact
Hmm.
that, first of all, there's a lot going on here. First of all, I think shame is a very powerful motivating tool. If you feel ashamed about what you're doing, it's
Hmm.
because this is a shameful act. When I would party all night and sleep in and call out from work, I would be ashamed. and that's for good reason. When I would look at myself in the mirror and not like what I saw, I was ashamed, and that was for good reason. But it doesn't make you a bad person. You're not
Right.
evil. You're not like some demonic beast, but you can
Right.
change. Look at my before picture. I was
Mm-hmm.
clinically obese.
Mm-hmm.
Look at my after picture. I am now a healthy weight. I'm not underweight. I never thought I could do a pull up. I've said this before on podcasts. I was prouder when I did my first pull up. I burst into tears. I remember this like it was yesterday. Then when I got my degree from Tulane, it's a pretty prestigious school in the
Look,
South. And
as somebody who works out, and those pull-ups are freaking hard. Okay, that is an accomplishment in itself.
yeah, but you got some muscle tone, dude. Like not a lot of women. I hope women understand that.
I've been working out for
Heather,
3 years with a trainer, though. That's why.
and that is the point. And this is what you guys don't get. Do you think Heather would be a fit lady with muscle tone if she
No,
wasn't working out? Like,
absolutely
you guys
not.
understand how difficult it is for women to gain muscle? It is almost impossible, and that's why female bodybuilders they're all using because it's really difficult for them to gain muscle. But no, can you do a pull up unassisted?
I'm almost there.
Good. Keep pushing, dude.
I'm almost there.
When you do it, you are going to burst into tears because when I couldn't do it, I worked. And here's the other crazy thing: I worked on my degree for 4 years, got the degree, and was like, "All right, where are we going? Where are we having the
Right.
celebratory dinner?" I worked on doing pull-ups. I think it took me, I don't know, 5 or 6 months to finally get there, maybe fewer, 3 or 4 months, and
Mm-hmm.
I burst into tears. I couldn't believe it. It's because the degree is something you pay for and study for, and the
Mm-hmm.
pull-up is something you do physically, and that is
You
what physical
literally work
exercise
your ass off for.
work your ass off. Something that you can go to university for 4 years, it will not mean as much because you are sitting passively in a lecture hall versus waking up, eating right, working out, training with a coach. See, that's the thing. People don't get it. Accountability is a two-way street. But no, you guys are not evil for being fat. I was not an evil person. I
No,
just had made poor decisions. Like, essentially, we're all the same except for our habits. Like, I don't care
exactly.
what mental illness you have or I have or what body you have or I have. It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you bad at being this type of healthy. So why don't you
Mm-hmm.
change that? And so that's what I show every day on my IG. I post what I work out. I post the macros, does the nutrient breakdown of the food that I'm eating because I don't need to get hired by everyone. If the entire world watched my IG and changed their life on that, I would be chilling, working a 9 to 5, being the happiest dude alive because I know
Right.
that my efforts were listened to. But that's why I'm showing this because I figured out what works. Finally, after not doing anything, I used to tell people that I this is how selfish I was. I even cursed my genetics. I was even angry with my ancestors. I told them I didn't have the right. I would tell people I didn't have the right body type to get abs. Like this is nuts. This is how selfish I was. So I'm essentially cursing my ancestors, but it's false. Everyone has a nice life underneath the poor decisions, and everyone has a nice body underneath the body fat, and I know that. And I'm not like some psycho ripped bodybuilder type. I
Yeah,
cut
no,
down to
me
like
neither.
150. Yeah, I cut down to 150 something pounds because I wanted to have visible abs for the first time ever. I'm just a normal guy. Like a lot of these, I'm actually not really down with like the whole fitness influencer community. They look too good, and like a lot of that stuff is enhanced or photoshopped. I work with people that want to look good and be happy in their own skin, and
That's the
and
thing. Is
yeah,
I work out and I eat relatively healthy, but I am not going to sacrifice a Taco Bell run for abs. Like, sorry, I prioritized, and I still eat a little healthier Taco Bell and stuff like that. But like, if I want Burger King or Mexican or something, I'm going to have it because I know that I've balanced out 90% of everything else that I work out, this, that, and the other thing. So I don't. I'm definitely not one of those like eat clean 24/7. It's just not my lifestyle. It will never be my lifestyle. And I understand that about myself. And when I understood that about myself and also quit like beating myself up because I wasn't eating like chicken and rice and broccoli 8 days a week, it completely changed things. And I've been able to keep my figure and keep the weight off because I've got a healthier relationship with food now because a lot of like diet culture and like the like fitness industry and stuff like that are all like you need to eat this, that, and the other thing, and if you don't, like you're fat, you're lazy, this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, you just need to understand where you're at and meet yourself there. And then all of a sudden, those results are going to happen. There does take some discipline. It absolutely takes some discipline. I can't eat junk food 24/7. I have to make sure that most of what I'm eating is high protein and this, that, and the other thing. But ever since I just kind of met myself where I knew I was at, all of a sudden, it wasn't as bad. I could keep the weight off. I could eat healthier and not be like, I hate this. Like I didn't feel like I had to. It's because I wanted to, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It just comes down to what one desires. If so, I desired to get a six pack and
Mm-hmm.
to get about 9-10% body fat. So I was extremely disciplined until I got there. But for some
Yep.
people, if they are extremely overweight or obese, they just want to be slightly overweight. And then okay, well, we can get you there. If you want to just be normal, then that's a goal. Like people trip on they're almost telling you what they are insecure about you doing, so then like their goals shift. It's very
Yes.
hard. Like if your goal, and I mean you, Heather, is to do a
Mm-hmm.
pull-up, if you continue training you will do a pull-up, but like
Yep.
don't let somebody else tell you what your goal is. My goal was to get ripped, to have abs, and that took a shitload of effort, and I put forth that effort and I got it. But if my goal was to do something else, then I could have done that. So it just comes down, and I tell this to all my clients: if you are a 55-year-old man who is extremely overweight, let's get your diabetes in check. Let's get you off blood pressure medication. Let's get you from a 40 waist to a 36 waist. You're still going to be overweight, but you're not going to be on all these meds. Now, you can see my proudest transformation is at the top of my page. My boy Bryce, he came in pretty athletic dude in his 20s. We got him looking like a fitness model real quick in about 5 weeks, just over 30. Yeah, it was 30 days. So it was just about a month. So
Yeah.
his thing was extremely hardcore. We were going to cut this amount of fat each week. You were going to eat these meals because his goal was to look like a fitness model. And what do you know? If you look at him, he looks like he could be on the cover of Men's Health. Like he's that jacked. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about the different goals. But I'm not going to take a dude, the same dude I mentioned, and be like, oh yeah, bro, like we're gonna get you to this. Like that's nuts. He's gonna
No.
quit. They're gonna give up. Or if I have female clients as well, and because of the way women's bodies works, I'm not going to give them the same amount. Women need a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
of certain macronutrients to keep the hormones going. Like I'm not going to make sure that you have fertility and like menstruation problems because we want to get you shredded. Like this is not
Yeah.
how it works. Not a cookie cutter program. This is not one size fits all. This is custom nutrition based on your body goals. But what I post is what I'm eating. So right now I'm in a slight
Yep.
gaining phase. And so I post my macros, and it's all custom stuff. What's really cool about this is I've always loved to cook. And when you are on this journey, you find that you are more intentional about what you eat. So you don't, there's like a whole preparation process and all that. And I do
Mm-hmm.
occasionally go out to eat as well. And I don't go overboard. I just order something that looks delicious and is healthy. So,
Exactly.
but it's
Because we're
so,
not shaming ourselves for what we're eating.
right. Of course, you should be ashamed if you are being shameful, but eating normally and sticking to your goals and being focused is
Yeah.
not a shameful activity. There's no shame
Literally.
in eating right. I'm not, you know what I'm not down with, and maybe some of your listeners are not cool with that. I'm not down with normalizing stuff that is extremely unhealthy on either side. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
down with unhealthy coping behaviors on either side of the eating discussion because it is not possible to be healthy at any size. Show me the anorexic, that person is
Exactly.
not healthy. Show me the
No.
6% fitness in body, the 6% body fat fitness influencer who is purging. He is not healthy. Show me the
Yeah.
450-pound plus size model. That person is not healthy. The healthy at any size is a load of nonsense, and it is extremely damaging. It is extremely damaging to people. And
Yeah.
I
And
understand that might alienate some people watching, but you have to be honest about what is going on. If someone is 400 pounds, they are not healthy.
I think they know that. But at the same time, I think there's a lot to factor in because, like you were saying, the 6% body fat guy that's purging, there's a mental health thing to go with that. Like it's not, there's
100%.
so much with fitness and health that ties into mental health. And I don't know why we are not talking about that. Like
Because
it's insane to
it's a
me.
weird secret that when you show me that dude who has this impossible physique, the lengths that person went to are not healthy. Now, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying I think it's okay to get yourself there and to push yourself and to get ripped like I had to do and like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're taking unhealthy measures, like if you're using substances or if you're purging or if you are suffering with all these issues, that's not healthy. And the other
Right.
side, which has become totally normalized, I don't know. There's a lot of toxic stuff. It normalizes, to essentially do what you want and who cares?
I
It's
feel
very
like
dangerous. But all
we're on like a weird pendulum. We tried so hard to get away from diet culture that we just swung in a completely different direction, and eventually it'll even itself out. But yeah, I mean, it's there's so many factors into being healthy and getting fit and this, that, and the other thing. And I think the number one thing that and I know it kept me from it was my mental health because it was the diet culture. It was, the food shaming that happened growing up, that kind of thing. So it was just like
you
I
dealt with
had
that,
such an
women. That's
unhealthy
horrible.
relationship with food. Such an unhealthy relationship.
From your folk, that is awful, and I know a lot of girls deal with that too. That's
Well,
or girls
that
and
social media, because I mean, I was born in 92. So I was coming of age in 2000. So I was 8 years old in 2000. And that was Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. That was the, super skinny, low as hell rise jeans, Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, all of that. And that's what we had to look at. And that's what was bombarding us 9 times out of 10. So if you weren't like a 00 and skin and bones, like, you were gross. And it's like there are different body types that have to do with genetics and autoimmune diseases and relationships with food. And we're not like, so that's what I grew up in. I grew up in that like crazy toxic diet culture where,
that was a dark time. The bodies that
it
were
was like
touted
20
there,
grams of fat and that's it. And it's like, what?
the bodies that were touted in the early 2000s were very scary. I mean, look, we could talk about this for hours, and maybe we'll have to
I
do a
know.
follow up just on
We
this.
might
But
have to.
the most important body for everyone watching is the body that you desire when you think of
Hmm.
yourself idealized. It isn't looking
Exactly.
at that person's body, because guess what? You're never going to have that person's body, and that person's body is probably faked. Like, that's the craziest thing. I want everyone listening, watching in the world to close their eyes and envision their body, and that's what you should row towards, not Lindsay Lohan or God. That was terrifying. And then here's the thing: a lot of that was drug fueled. Like, that's the
I was just
craziest
gonna
thing.
say a lot of it was.
I,
But
if you're
being a
idolizing
child
it,
actor, I'm like sympathetic for her because she was a child actor. She
yeah,
was growing up in the spotlight. Like I probably would have snorted a line or two too. Like it's just especially because child stars are coming out and talking about how awful the culture was, and then they obviously had diet culture. And you have to be skinny, you have to be this, you have to be that. Like I mean, Demi Lovato is a prime example of what happens when people are way too toxic around literal children.
yeah, no, it's a mess and it's a shame. And I think there is value in being inspired. If you look at the fitness influencer or the online coach, by the way,
Hmm.
I never got like, this is why I'm the best at this or very good at this. One of the top dudes is because I was very overweight and I look like moved to a point where I'm just like in very good shape, which is achievable by
Yeah,
everyone.
you
I'm not the
walked the
person.
walk. Like
Yeah,
the
and you know what a lot of dudes
struggle.
You know what a lot of dudes do? They're juicing, they're using some sort of weird chemical, or they're photoshopping their pictures. And then these fitness influencer dudes, then they're getting on their channel and they're saying, "Hey, with diet and exercise, you can look like me, bro. You're on a regimen of steroids. What
with
the hell is
diet,
wrong with
exercise, and a couple extra substances, you too can look
you?"
like me. Some Facetune,
It's
like what?
it's a sickening marketing tactic, and that's why I'm not down with that. The people that I'm down with on this path are people that have come from darkness and use diet and exercise to work on their mental health. Oh, and you look really good, great, that's a byproduct. But the dude that had
Exactly.
like the hunky-dory existence, had a six-pack in 8th grade and has just continued to get more ripped and juiced,
Was just
I got nothing in
blessed by the
common with you.
gods from birth. Like,
Yeah,
ugh.
I got nothing in common with you. I'm actually there a couple people that it's just so obvious that they're juicing, and then they're trying to sell people. It's like a marketing tactic, that I'm not down with that. at all. But
Nope.
all these things are linked: our mental health, our physical health, our ability to love each other, our ability to love ourselves. Because I struggle with massive mental health issues. Never had clinically diagnosed, but I think the person that is considering their own self destruction with some regularity is probably not totally mentally healthy.
Yeah.
Um,
You weren't
so yeah,
okay.
yeah, chronic anxiety, panic attacks. Like I'd be out to eat with a girlfriend, and I felt like my heart was gonna implode, or like the walls were closing in on me.
Hmm.
Massive depression, inability to get off the couch, inability to get out of bed. Um, yeah, these are massive mental health issues. And what unlocked it for me was nutrition and exercise. I felt my life was out of control. Then I was finally able to control my eating and movement. And what do you know then? Even though all the chaos of the world is still going on, this crazy shit with the subway and all this other stuff is happening, and my mind is going crazy. Well, John, at least you woke up early. At least you ate clean, a lot of vegetables and lean protein, and at least you worked out today. So that's all you can control. I used to trip on the fact that so much of my life was out of control, but yet I wasn't
Yep.
working on anything that was under my control. It's no wonder I felt out of control, and I'd want to run to the drugs. Well, I would
Right.
used to get obliterated, right? So I'd get off of work. I did a lot of restaurant work. I would drink a bottle of sparkling wine, and then either I would go to Coke or mushrooms or both or some pills, go to a bar, and then it would just go on. It just never ended. And then I would
Well,
wake
and that's
up
so
feeling like
normalized in New York City, I feel.
this is in New
Especially,
Orleans because
oh, New
this is
Orleans?
in New Orleans. Yeah, no, New Orleans is way more degenerate because you can drink in the street, and because everyone works in the service industry, and because everyone is drunk all the time.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Um,
say I worked in the service industry for a while, and like
you know what's up?
shit like that was relatively normalized. So it's
Yeah,
just
it
kind of
is.
the restaurant culture.
And don't get me started on the whole sex thing. That's the worst part. I mean, I never did this because I never
Ah,
did this stuff
yeah.
with like I never did this when I was managing restaurants, but when I was a server, like a low level grunt, man, it was a free for all. It
Oh
was
yeah, everybody's
disgusting.
sleeping with everybody.
And everyone
That's
has partners, fiancés, wives, husbands. It was just disgusting. Just because you spend 8 miserable hours with
hmm.
someone and then go to the bar and get fucked up with them, then you're going to hook up with them and then go back to your partner. Like
Yeah.
it's nuts. And so many dudes in positions of power in the restaurant industry use that as a way to sleep around. It's just
Oh
the whole
yeah.
thing as a whole.
Hmm.
It's just a nightmare factory. What were you doing? Were you waiting tables?
Yeah, I worked at like a pizza slash restaurant. It was like dual sided back home. But yeah, no, it was I don't have any personal stories, but I saw some shit.
I got
So
plenty. I got plenty of personal stories. We could do round
yeah.
three about the service industry. I got plenty of
I mean,
those.
I was
It's just
18. I think if I'd worked in there longer, like I'd have some personal stories, but I was 18 when I worked there. So like I was relatively still like innocent-ish. But
I'm glad. Yeah,
I want to actually
please,
circle
please.
back real quick because no, because you said something that like with me. You were saying like with all the chaos and everything that you were still eating clean and this, that, and the other thing. How does your mental health work on the days that everything's going on and you didn't eat clean that day? Like you had more pizza than you should have, or something like that. Are you still like, you know what, tomorrow's a new day kind of thing, or I must have needed this today, so we're just gonna like hit it a little harder tomorrow? Like, what's your mentality with that?
So I would say if you look at the frequency chart, there's like an energetic frequency chart. One of the highest
Mm-hmm.
levels of frequency is acceptance. So
Mm-hmm.
if we are, and shame and guilt is all the way at the bottom. So if we make mistakes and we learn to accept the mistakes we make, like that is a massive thing. So one of the things I always tell myself is worrying about wasted time is more wasted time. If you have made
Mm-hmm.
an error, experience is the best teacher. Also, one of my phrases that I haven't heard anywhere else is that we take no losses, we only learn lessons. So all of these things are lessons. I don't believe in losses. I don't believe in any of this stuff. I accept everything I do because I know I'm moving as intentionally as possible. Perfectionism is awful. Procrastination and
Mm-hmm.
perfectionism are essentially the same. So yeah, if I don't hit my macros perfectly, then the next morning I will write, or because I do a lot of writing and self-reflection and
Yeah.
thinking, John, please, you understand that you felt sluggish because you had that extra slice of pizza. You understand that you have this goal. So focus on that goal. It's people that cannot accept. And here's the wildest thing: I used to not accept anything about my life. I wasn't accepting any of it. And yet I was continuing to do it. So great question. No, if I mess up on my macros, I don't go as hard as I want in the gym, and then I feel that sense of regret, well, isn't that just fuel for the next day? I'm going to be alive tomorrow, I hope.
Hmm.
Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but tomorrow I can go harder.
Yeah. So to kind of make a little bit of a left turn, because I was very interested when we chatted about this on our initial call. You now, do you own or co-own the Adirondack Creamery?
I am a director of operations of
Okay.
this local ice cream company. Yeah.
So so you had said it was ethically sourced. What is the version of ethically sourced? Because we all
So
want to know what ethically sourced means because it's so broad. It's such a broad term.
100%. Most people, when they shop, if they're looking for something that's better for them or better for the environment, they'll
Hmm.
go for the organic brand, whatever that is. But word to the
Yeah.
wise, organic is essentially a marketing tool. It's almost not entirely, but it's almost completely decoupled from its initial thing, which was something that meant something that was holistically better for the earth.
You're
So the
speaking
company
my
I work for,
language.
yeah, no, it means nothing. Also, to be certified organic, it's essentially a mafia tactic. If you want to be certified organic by the state of New York or the national thing, yeah, I'm not saying you're gonna have to pay me off, but if you don't jump through all these hoops, you're not gonna get the thing. It's just
Yeah.
it's weird. It's mafia style extortion coupled with like 2024 branding hell to
Hmm.
create this juggernaut. You know how much organic stuff is sold by Walmart, one of the least ethical companies on the earth? These
That's
words
what cracks
mean
me up. They're
nothing.
always like organic. I'm like, dude, I don't shop at Walmart for literal ethical reasons.
Please, you treat your employees like dirt. You have the worst labor practices. You ship everything in from countries that have no labor protections, and you call your stuff organic. It means nothing. So, ethically
Yep.
sourced means food that is produced with the animals that create them being treated in a humane manner. That the people that are working this system in a humane manner, that it relies, in my opinion, on small businesses. So, the firm that I work for, it's a local ice cream company. The farms are in upstate New York. The dairy is
Hmm.
across from the farm. Everyone involved is essentially a family member of some sort. It's all small businesses. Even the
Hmm.
distributors are family owned. There's nothing corporate about it. And this is what I mean by ethically sourced. And consumption choices, I hate to break it to you guys, but the only real choice we have in this modern era are our consumption choices. Like if you go back, I don't know, a couple hundred years, if you didn't really like the get down, you could like go out over there and like live and like do your thing. There's no
Yeah.
other place to go to. The system, the Borg, this hive mind has consumed every aspect of our existence. And so now the only choice we have is what we choose to consume, which is very important. If you consume garbage, you'll feel like garbage. But when I say ethically sourced, I mean things that you really can trust. And it's me, like it's myself, the owner of the company, and like a small team. So that's I would say my 9 to 5 day job. And I'm very passionate about food. After university, I traveled a lot and I worked on a lot of small farming projects around the world, and I understood how difficult it is to eke a single calorie of food out of the ground. If you guys have never
Hmm.
done it, plant some herbs. See, that's probably the lowest thing for you to do. But if you just put a few seeds in a pot in your
Yeah.
window and you actually grow something, you'll see how magical life is, and your love for that plant is. It can sustain you.
Yeah.
But no, it's not
I
a
have.
lecture at all. All these things are linked, and I'm glad you're
Yep.
passionate about it.
I am. I mean, I am not the gardener in my family. That would be my brother-in-law. He's really good at it. I have a black thumb. I can barely keep a cactus alive, honestly. But that's also like, the whole commune thing. Like, everybody's got their little things that they're all good at. So he's very good at gardening, and which is fantastic for me because, then I get the fresh produce. It's fantastic. But where can we find um that brand?
It is in every Wegmans. It is in every Whole Foods,
I love
and
Whole
it is
Foods.
in hundreds of small uh, markets upstate and beyond. So we sell ice cream from essentially from Boston to DC, and also a small outpost. There's a chain of supermarkets in Texas known as Central Supermarkets. There's about a dozen. They sell
Oh,
our ice
that's
cream, and then hundreds of stores from Boston to DC. But the two biggest ones are going to be Whole Foods, which is, I mean, people have different viewpoints. It
I
is
mean,
owned
it's a
by Amazon.
corporation. End of
Yeah, it
story.
is. It
There's
is.
no such thing as an
Um,
ethical corporation.
no, of course not. And ethics itself, and here's another thing I like to stress, is that hypocrisy is unavoidable. Show me the perfect human, and I will show you a liar.
Yep.
Nobody can be pure. Nobody is perfect. I have to pay rent, dude. Like, I'm using a light that burns fossil fuel that will never be replaced. Do you understand? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was younger, I used to get really caught up in this. I was extremely radical politically, but that was
Mm-hmm.
just because I wanted to destroy myself. I mean, the revolutionary has a martyr complex, has a
Mm-hmm.
self-destructive aim. I used to fantasize about dying in a successful revolution. And now I realize that was just, another self-destructive urge. Now we have to
Yeah.
live. Living is a revolutionary act. You and I, people that have been through mental health issues, that still struggle with that stuff, because I still struggle with it. We have to make this choice to live, and looking for perfectionism is crazy. So there's no ethical corporation. I don't even know if, I think it's our choices can be ethical, but it's very difficult to move past that. You know what I mean?
Well,
But yeah,
especially in this day and age.
oh yeah, of course. Where there's like 10 corporations that rule the world, but what is important is what we do with our own lives. View
Mm-hmm.
yourself as your own being, your own network, and it is a network. There's a network of cells and nodes. These are the muscular network and a skeletal network, and then there's a network you have with your loved ones, then with the group, and then people in your city, and so all this stuff is connected. I know we're getting kind of hippy dippy, but that's kind of
Oh,
the way
look,
I
I
communicate.
love a good hippy dippy moment. Do not even get me started.
No, I feel it, man. It's good.
I love
And
it.
this is the most important network there is. Before I got involved in the digital space, I didn't get it. I had so much. I talk so much shit on social media. I post every day, all day, every day. I used to talk so
Mm-hmm.
much shit on this stuff is because I was ashamed of myself.
Yeah.
This is the when we talk about shame. I was living a shameful life. I was doing shameful things. I was not showing up. I was lying. I was cheating. I was stealing. I was overdoing it. I was using. No wonder I felt ashamed. There is no shame in my
Mm-hmm.
game. I urge everyone to live an outward facing life. If you put your life outward facing, you can't fuck your life up anymore. I can't do it anymore. I wouldn't know what it would be like to call the dope man. I don't know what it would be like. It would destroy me. And that's about creating core beliefs. You have to create these beliefs in yourself that you are worthy of a good life. And you do that by taking good actions. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with any of us. There's just stuff that's wrong with what we're doing. If we struggle with mental health issues and we're not taking the actions that counteract those struggles, then that's the problem. But no, the fact that you've dealt and are dealing with stuff, the fact that I've dealt in, doesn't make us bad people. But I honestly used
No.
to think I was just defective. You ever think that you're somehow defective?
I literally still, because like, with CPTSD and borderline, you literally sit there and you're like, maybe I actually am a terrible person and I've just manipulated everybody into thinking I'm like a good person. I'm so good at this that I have manipulated myself into thinking I'm a good person. But then I have to remember that truly awful people don't wonder if they're a good person or not.
Yeah,
And then I'm
that's
like, you know
real.
what? Whatever. Like I have set fires, I've made mistakes, but the windshield is bigger than the back window for a reason. Like I just got to keep it. I got to keep it trucking. So,
That's real. That's so real.
yeah. So, but God, this has been so much fun. We're gonna have to have you back. I say that for a lot of my
Oh,
guests, but honestly, when I really vibe with somebody, I'm like, I could have a whole series with them because that's just what I love about what I do is like I get these guests that I'm just like, I cannot wait to have you back, like that kind of thing. Just because, like, when I can vibe with somebody's frequency and their energy, like, I want to stick with that, just, yeah. But thank you so much for coming on. This has been an absolute blast.
my pleasure. If you spend 5 minutes with someone you can't stand, it feels like an hour. If you spend an hour with someone that you vibe with, like we just did, that
I
was an
know.
hour that flew by like 5 minutes. Wow.
I
Like
know.
I'm down for.
I literally looked at the timer and I'm like, it's been 48 minutes. Like, how?
No, dude, it's the connection, dude. This energy is so real. Anyone, guys, you got to understand that you get exactly what you put out. Heather has opened her
Yep.
heart and her life, and this is what she gets in return. Thank you so much for having me. I'm down for episode 2, 3, 4. Any topics, any
Hell
understanding, I
yeah.
got you.
Hell yeah. Oh, before we go, where can we find you? Like website, Instagram, all that. Tell us all the things.
Best place to find me is at NYC Foodways on Instagram. That is NYC FOODWAYS. For those unaware, foodways are cultural pathways through food, and that is a macro and a micro situation. I did YouTube for a while, so you can find me on YouTube at NYC Foodways as well. That's like esoteric. If you really want to hear me talk spiritual and like do cultural analysis, that's where you can find me. But most
Hell
folks
yeah.
find me on IG at NYC Foodways. I'm posting daily, and I need you all to understand that there is a light after this extremely dark time, and that your life
Mm-hmm.
is worth living, and that you are a good person underneath those poor
Yeah.
decisions. There is nothing wrong with you, but there is something wrong with what you're doing. Hit me up and let's walk the path together.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And we'll have everything linked below in the episode description. But dude, this has been phenomenal.
Salute.
Thank you.